Side Family, another 10-minute railway tale by me, Peter John Cooper. I've mentioned before how the board of directors of the LS&M Railway Company unerringly managed to make a complete hash of any opportunity that presented itself, and yet there was an occasion in the early years of the reign of King Edward VII when one of the customary disasters led to the railway achieving an unexpected and unique award. The board of the LS&M Railway was notorious for their inability to make a decision and stick to it, as demonstrated by the various unsuitable designs of engines and rolling stock generally bought off the shelf from a variety of independent manufacturers or inherited as they amalgamated with other smaller, even less viable operations. There was never a locomotive superintendent of the capability and stature of a Dean or Armstrong or a churchward to bring the motive power into some sort of coherent, possibly profitable unity. And so they blundered on from disaster to disaster, but never quite succumbing altogether until the final coup de grace in 1923. And so it was with the ever-changing livery of their engines and rolling stock. At the formation of the company in the early days of Victoria's reign, they chose a rich purple colour as a mark of patriotic loyalty to the new monarch. But only a dozen years later, they opted for a bright scarlet to echo the tunics of the brave soldiers fighting in the Crimea. Later still, and for various reasons unfathomable to us now, they switched to a bright green, followed by a deep mustard, and then a royal blue. It was only by the skin of their teeth that they avoided the Victorian fashion for all things tartan. And because of the desperate finances, the rail sheds never had the resources or time to complete any one livery change before the next came along. But it did mean that at various points, someone waiting on the platform would be greeted by a train made up of carriages and engine of a wild variety of sickening rainbow colours. This exotic, variegated look, though, made the railway of particular interest to train spotters, who would always expect to see something novel, maybe positively prehistoric, as every train rattled and wheezed by. It was especially attractive to children, who loved to watch out for the garish clashing colours that every train brought. One small family of children became well known to passengers as they watched and waved from the top of an embankment near their house in the country. No one ever knew why they were allowed to run about unsupervised, and the long-suffering staff at the local station had to put up with them making a nuisance of themselves when they should, by rights, have been in school. It so happened that one day, whilst these young mischief makers were at their usual place atop the embankment, the boys from a nearby public school on a cross-country run slithered down the slope and disappeared into a tunnel on the line. The curious children followed the pack down the embankment and saw that one of the runners was lying in the tunnel mouth, having twisted his ankle. The excited children set off down the line, and by good fortune and expert control by the driver, were able to halt the train before the injured lad could be run over. And not long after this, the children again caused the train to stop when they spotted a small landslip on the embankment. This breach of strict railway law and the concomitant safety issues resulted in the regional manager, in his customary bowler hat, being sent to admonish the children's mother and forbid them ever trespassing again, on pain of prosecution leading inevitably, he averred, to imprisonment. The children's mother broke down and admitted that the father was already in prison on a charge of spying for a foreign power. And later, in the boardroom, it was generally agreed that these ragamuffins were old enough to know better. As they were likely destined for the workhouse anyway, a prosecution must be brought pour encourager les autres. Then, as is the way of things, a woman arrived at the company headquarters and said she was about to write up the incidents in a book. She offered to donate a proportion of the profits to the LS&M's Orphans Fund, which she reasoned would cause a great deal of goodwill to flow towards the company. The board, fearing the usual negative publicity, though, flatly refused to have anything to do with the book and threatened to sue if she so much as mentioned the name of the company. I suppose there was some justification in this, and they pointed out that the driver, a man of a sensitive disposition, had been subjected to a considerable amount of shock and embarrassment when the young ladies in question had waved their nether garments at him. In the event, they did agree to drop the prosecution, but insisted that they would come down hard on the children making any further nuisance about the line, and made it abundantly clear in a number of releases to the press that they were not a child-friendly operation and didn't want them anywhere near their properties. The book, of course, proved to be a bestseller, and the Orphans Fund had lost out by a considerable amount, and the company had lost out on a great positive opportunity. But wait, I hear you cry, what of this prestigious award? On account of the book called, I believe, The Trackside Family, there was an enormous boom in the popularity of railways among the tinies throughout the country. A well-known children's newspaper, Cheery Times, ran a competition for the under-10s, and despite the animosity the LS&M had shown lately towards young people, it came out top in the poll for the prettiest railway. Thank you for listening to this 10-minute railway tale. There will be another along very soon.